This game is set in the year 2027. A third world war has only recently come to a conclusion. America has prevailed, but at great cost. Two-thirds of the population have been wiped out globally. There are very few governments left. Every living citizen has been tagged with a memory chip, recording everything that they experience. The Special Surveillance Unit, or SSU, was established to create a tamper-proof memory monitoring system for all crimes. Everything was to be logged, categorized, and archived. The new normal is absolute faith in memory retrieval. Crime lords and black markets are at their highest levels in human history. Laws are disregarded with impunity. The SSU has never been compromised. Until now. The game itself is designed around a two-person narrative to invest the player in the choices that he makes. So, if you were to play on the law enforcement side, you are Agent Jack Compton. Ever since the SSU started contracting out its detective work to freelancers, you've been in on the action. You recently stumbled upon a glitch in the system that everyone trusts. It doesn't seem like much, but with a lot of effort, someone could use it to delete memories. Of course, the SSU denies that this glitch even exists. They tell you that you are mistaken, that you are exaggerating the threat. They threaten to lock you up if you keep pushing the issue. You get the distinct impression that they are deliberately covering this up. Now, it looks like you'll have to take matters into your own hands. So if you were to play on the criminal side, your name is Alex Long. You grew up during the war. You know hardship more than most, even in this deprived world. Unlike most criminals, you have a brain. You have a network of contacts throughout the city that are constantly expanding, even agents within the police force. What they tell you is that the SSU system is unbreakable, that your memories can be searched at any time and can never be altered. With your superior hacking skills, you put that theory to the test. And you were able to find a glitch in the system, buried so deep in the code that it's unlikely to ever be fixed or even discovered. If you can escape with this information, you'll be able to have a massive advantage. That is, if you can evade the SSU.
We settled on a darker graphical style to really accentuate the mood of the post-war world. The game will include recognizable features such as cars and buildings made to look fairly similar to what exists today, but with elements of science fiction, including high-tech cameras and propaganda-esque billboards. The audio is going to be comparable to an action movie soundtrack. The intent is to use the soundtrack to subtly grant the player an idea of the general challenges they're facing, like slow building and deep bass when faced with a suspenseful situation, or fast-paced orchestral music while chasing down a criminal. There's also room to add an electronica feeling to the music to enhance a more futuristic vibe of the game. For the user interface in Blank Slate, we really wanted to take advantage of our VR technology and do our best to provide the player with an experience as close to real life as possible. This obviously meant we had to do away with the standard heads-up display as seen in most games, and instead use the player's VR peripheral in their own body to display the information relevant to them. Given the near-futuristic setting of the game, we had the idea of using holograms in a number of unique ways, namely in the form of two bracers the player would wear on their forearms that display the player's current stamina, inventory, and equipped items, and so on. With this approach, the players would only see exactly what they want to see by looking down at either arm and seeing either their current stats or their inventory, thereby avoiding having to deal with a cluttered screen while playing the game.
Our game will take place in a cyber-dystopian setting. Not only does this closely match the prompt, but it is also a compelling and exciting setting for a video game to take place in. An example of a game which features a similar setting is the popular card game Android Netrunner. In it, two players compete, one as the evil corporation trying to keep its secrets, and the other as a hacker attempting to expose them. While this is an example of a tabletop game, there are a number of other video games which also feature a similar setting. One such example is the popular game Shadowrun Returns. While originally a tabletop RPG, this game, which heavily features cyberpunk elements, has found success in the digital marketplace. Players in both versions of the game are treated to a dark atmosphere of highly advanced cyber technology where they have to use these exciting tools in order to overcome their obstacles. Our game would also feature similar technology, which would enable the players to win. Another such example would be Watch Dogs. While not necessarily mechanically successful, the setting in which it takes place was both novel and interesting. Players in this game run around a high-tech playground of Chicago, where they must use their hacker skills to finish their objectives and evade capture. A similar version of this high-tech setting would work very well for our game. While all of these games are past examples, it's worth noting that there are still games in active development which feature similar settings. One such example is Apocalypse: The Afterfall, a game which takes place in a post-fall America where access to tech is limited but very valuable. This game is just one example of games in development, but this shows that there is a wide market interest in games of this type. Altogether, we believe that a dystopian setting is the best possible choice for our game.
In the dystopian setting, we believed that an open-world adventure would fit best with our desired gameplay experience. This setting will see players in a massive city during a rise in civil unrest as civilians begin growing tired of the government's corruption and unlawful practices. Players will have the city before them in a The Division sort of experience, with side missions and objectives, and also storyline missions. Players will play the game in first-person VR, traveling around the city, interacting with the world as the storyline shapes it. The aforementioned mission types will be played through in a stealth or parkour gameplay fashion. While the linear missions may revolve more around telling the narrative, the stronghold and side missions will utilize both aspects. There is a limited player progression system meant to enhance the stealth and parkour gameplay. It will mostly boil down to building stamina and agility in order to tackle more demanding missions successfully. Completing those missions will provide the player with memories which will allow them to upgrade those skills, or that can be used to provide advantages in future missions to give one player a greater advantage over any resistance. Primarily, we are designing our gameplay experience to fully utilize our stealth and parkour features. We will attempt to capture the intensity of both features through providing a unique perspective exclusively available with VR headsets, as well as unique environment interaction that can only be found with the first-person perspectives. The first-person stealth or adventure game genre is a bit of a niche genre, with few games being designed solely for the first-person perspective. Our focus is to immerse the player in their actions, whether that is sneaking around in enemy territory or on the move traversing obstacles to quickly capture an objective. When we began to consider what sort of story we wanted to implement in our game, it quickly became apparent that an important issue we needed to address was that we had two sides of one story to tell. There aren't many precedents for this sort of story implementation, but going against the grain is something we strive for. So we decided on a two-player, interdependent storyline. Taking notes from Brink, we believe the way in which to create the most compelling experience is to give players a choice between two opposing sides. Between the government's perspective as a law enforcement agent, trying to retain and restore order in a city filled with unrest, or from the civilian's perspective, as the lawless citizen who perceives himself as a freedom fighter against a corrupt government and justice system. Through this method, we want players to become aware that by focusing solely on one side of a story, they miss an entirely different perspective which may change their opinion. There are three different implementations of this feature that players will experience: a linear storyline that involves with player choices and actions, direct one-on-one missions involving player strongholds, and single-player side missions. The linear storyline is where players will begin and will be the focus of the player's experience, so as to immerse them into the setting and plot. Story missions will have objectives for each player, which, whether they succeed or fail, will have an impact on the narrative and the condition of the city overall. Our storyline will flow through the city, adapting to the actions of each player, or by a predetermined set of reactions if playing solo. While the VR experience may be the focus, we still want players to feel like they are part of the story of a living world. The Stronghold and side missions are smaller missions. The former is geared directly towards satisfying the desire for competition, with stealth and free-running missions involving player strongholds. The side missions are more intimate, single-player experiences that provide background on what's going on in the city, which could influence the player's decisions, as well as provide bonuses to player progression.
Our game includes a base-like feature that has been popularized by many games, including the successful games such as Far Cry 4, Fallout 4, and Watch Dogs, to name a few games where buildings are used as bases of operation for the player, not just NPCs. These buildings are purchasable and set up in tiers which determine their defensive capabilities. There are 3 tiers that go hand in hand with the currency and defensive capabilities. The higher the tier, the more it costs, but the higher the defensive capabilities it will have. Like Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, players will be able to purchase defensive upgrades for their base that will bolster its defense. As you can see, the player can purchase cameras, as well as security drones, much like what was in Deus Ex Human Revolution. These are dependent on the tier of the building the player has purchased, as the tier allows a specific number of objects to be in the base. The higher the tier, the more the base is able to have, as discussed earlier. This portion of strongholds or black market hubs, if the player is a criminal, is like the base infiltration in Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, as it allows players to upgrade their base, keeping their assets safe. This was a well-received feature as an addition to an already amazing franchise. Why attack strongholds? Strongholds helps the player generate currency as well as experience, and allows the player to steal memories, which is a unique item in our game. Besides side missions, stronghold infiltration is another way to generate currency as well as experience. The rewards are essentially the same as any other games-based infiltration, such as Far Cry, which gives the players the ability to take back outposts in order to obtain money, XP, and control over an area. Although our game won't employ the control point from strongholds, it will add that memory feature that allows players to take a memory that will aid them in their progression throughout the game. Strongholds, or black market hubs, work much the same as Metal Gear Solid 5's base infiltration, with the exception that there is no combat involved on the player side, but instead the player must sneak to a mainframe and hack it in order to obtain their credits and XP. The hacking in our game is heavily influenced by Deus Ex Human Revolution, which included a very successful and well-received hacking mechanic, and I believe our game can benefit from taking it and combining it with our game's VR and making it more interactive, as the player would be able to use their hands with the hacking interface, allowing it to be way more interactive than any other hacking. If the players are found, they must escape the premises by utilizing the game's parkour movement system, which goes hand in hand with the VR, which would essentially make the parkour much like Mirror's Edge, but with VR.
Thank you for reviewing the project. We hope you're as intrigued in that concept as we are, and we look forward to working with you soon.